Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're going to be taking a look at all sorts of things going on in Japan right now.
Yeah, real eclectic mix this time.
Yeah, we've got traditional art, modern art, some AI stuff, even margarine.
Well, let's start with art, I think.
Hmm.
There's some really interesting events and exhibitions happening right now. The Raki exhibition in Kyoto, for example, is generating a lot of buzz.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw that Raku's work has always been really popular, but this is the first major exhibition in like, what, 20 years?
Something like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's a pretty big deal for fans of traditional Japanese art.
Definitely. And then on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, we've got that huge installation going on in Yokohama.
Oh, right. The one with all the, what were they, giant inflatable things?
Yeah, and lights and music.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be pretty spectacular.
I saw some pictures online. It definitely looks like an experience.
Yeah. Then there's the Art Month project going on in Tokai, which is interesting because it's more about bringing art into everyday life.
Right. It's not just about going to a gallery or a museum, but encountering art in unexpected places.
Exactly. Like on the streets or in local businesses. It's a really cool concept.
Yeah, it seems like there's a real push to make art more accessible and engaging for everyone.
And speaking of accessible and engaging, we've got Lego art on the agenda today.
Ah, yes. The Lego Mona Lisa. That caught my eye, too.
It's pretty amazing what they could do with Legos these days.
It really is. Those sets are so intricate and detailed, they're not just for kids anymore.
Definitely not. Okay, so moving on from visual art, we've also got a story about a gifted shamisen player.
Right. This article really delves into what it means to be labeled as gifted and the pressures that come with that.
Yeah, it's not always easy being exceptionally talented. There's a whole other set of expectations and challenges.
Exactly. And this article explores those nuances in a really insightful way.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about some movie news. It looks like a Star Wars movie has been pulled from the schedule.
Oh, wow. Yeah, these big budget films often face delays, but with Star Wars, it's always a big deal because of the massive fan base.
Right, I mean, people get really invested in those stories.
For sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that project.
All right, before we jump into the world of AI, let's talk about one more art event, the Monet's Water Lilies exhibition.
Ah, Monet, a classic. There's something so captivating about his work.
Yeah, it's timeless. And this exhibition is supposed to be really immersive, with a special focus on those iconic water lily paintings.
I read that they've even created a cafe and a hotel inspired by Monet's work. Talk about a full sensory experience.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's shift gears now and talk about something completely different, AI. And specifically, the fact that Audrey Tang has been advising Japanese startups. That's a pretty big deal.
It is. Audrey Tang is a real pioneer in the tech world, known for their expertise in both digital innovation and social responsibility.
Right, and that combination is what makes this so interesting. What kind of guidance do you think they're offering these startups?
Well, knowing Tang's work, I'd say they're probably emphasizing the importance of developing AI that benefits society as a whole.
So not just about creating technology for technology's sake, but really considering the ethical implications and the potential impact on people's lives.
Exactly. And I think that's where it gets really fascinating.
Because it's not always clear cut, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you define good AI? How do you ensure that it's used ethically?
Those are the big questions. And I think Tang's involvement suggests that Japan is taking those questions seriously.
Which is encouraging because AI is becoming more and more prevalent in our lives every day.
Absolutely. It's no longer a futuristic concept. It's already here. And it's shaping the world around us in profound ways.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations to think critically about how we develop and use this technology.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, well, I think that's a good place to take a break for now.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll dive even deeper into some of these topics and explore their connections in more detail. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we're exploring all sorts of interesting things happening in Japan. So before the break, we were talking about Audrey Tang's work with Japanese startups in the field of AI.
Yeah, really fascinating stuff. I'm curious to hear more about what kind of guidance Tang is offering these startups.
Well, one of the key things Tang emphasizes is the need for transparency in AI development. They encourage startups to be really open about how their technology works and to consider the potential impact it could have on society as a whole.
So it's not just about building cool tech, but also making sure that it's used ethically and responsibly.
Exactly. Tang's work really highlights the importance of social responsibility when it comes to AI development.
And that makes a lot of sense given how rapidly AI is advancing.
It's no longer just a science fiction concept. AI is already having a huge impact on our lives, and it's only going to become more influential in the future.
Which is why it's so important to have these conversations now to think critically about how we want AI to shape our world.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Speaking of benefiting everyone, were there any specific examples that Tang shared about how AI can be used for social good?
Yeah, actually, there were several. For example, Tang talked about how AI can be used to improve disaster response systems, to personalize education, and to create more accessible healthcare options.
Wow, those are some pretty incredible applications.
Right. It's really exciting to see how AI is being used to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges.
It definitely gives me hope for the future. Okay, so before we move on, I wanted to circle back to something Tang mentioned earlier, the idea of combining Joule and AI intelligence. Can you elaborate on what that means?
Sure. It's a really intriguing concept. Essentially, it suggests that we need to move beyond a purely technical definition of intelligence when it comes to AI.
So it's not just about making AI smarter, but also about imbuing it with human values like compassion, empathy, and wisdom.
Exactly. The Joule aspect of intelligence represents those qualities that make us uniquely human. And Tang believes that we need to find ways to integrate those qualities into AI systems.
That's fascinating. I'm starting to see how this all ties back to the art world that we were discussing earlier. Do you think there are any connections between the ethical development of AI and artistic expression?
Oh, absolutely. Art has always been a way for humans to explore complex emotions, ethical dilemmas, and our relationship with the world around us. And I think AI can be seen as a new medium for that kind of exploration.
That's a really interesting parallel. It suggests that artists and AI developers can learn from each other, maybe even collaborate to create a future where technology enhances our humanity rather than diminishing it.
I completely agree. I think there's a lot of potential for cross-pollination between these two fields.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a little more down to earth, margarine. We were talking about how the perception of margarine might be outdated, especially when it comes to trans fats. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Sure. The article you sent in highlights the fact that regulations for trans fats in margarine are different in Japan compared to the US. In the US, the FDA has put strict limits on the amount of trans fats allowed in food products, but those limits are not as strict in Japan.
So that means that some margarine products in Japan might still contain high levels of trans fats, which have been linked to heart disease.
Right, and that's why it's so important for consumers to be aware of these differences and to read food labels carefully.
It's a good reminder that we can't always rely on what we've heard in the past. We need to stay informed and make our own decisions based on the best available evidence.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying informed, let's talk about that Lego exhibition of iconic artwork.
Oh yeah, the Lego Mona Lisa. I'm still amazed by that.
Me too. It's a great example of how art can be made accessible and engaging for people of all ages.
And it also speaks to the power of creativity, how we can take something as simple as Lego bricks and turn it into something truly extraordinary.
Exactly. It's a reminder that creativity knows no bounds, and that even familiar objects can be used to create something new and exciting.
Well said. Okay, I think it's time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up our exploration of these fascinating topics and consider what they mean for all of us. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's amazing how much we've covered in this episode about Japan.
Yeah, we've gone from traditional art to the future of AI and even touched on margarine and Star Wars.
It's a real mix, but there are definitely some common threads running through it all.
Like what?
Well, it seems like there's a real push towards innovation and creativity in all these different areas.
Yeah, I see that. Whether it's reimagining classic art with Legos or using AI to solve social problems, there's a real sense of possibility and a willingness to experiment.
Exactly. And it's not just about technology either. We talked about how the film industry is tackling more complex themes and challenging audiences to think critically.
Right. It's like entertainment is evolving to reflect the changing world around us.
And that brings us back to the power of art. Whether it's film painting, music, or even something like Lego art, it has this incredible ability to make us think, feel, and connect with each other.
I completely agree. Art helps us to understand ourselves and the world around us in new and unexpected ways.
And in a world that's becoming increasingly complex and interconnected, those connections are more important than ever.
Definitely. So what do you think are the key takeaways from all of this?
Well, I think it's a reminder that we're living in a time of incredible change and opportunity, and that we all have a role to play in shaping the future.
I like that. It's about being curious, staying informed, and embracing new ideas.
And never losing sight of the things that make us human, like creativity, compassion, and a sense of wonder.
Well said.
It's been great exploring all these topics with you today.
Likewise.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.